So it's just bullshit. Okay. I'm going to start to deal with this and then we'll go from there. All right.
Well, my camera was up on you and Maria. So both of us are.
This is for Chris.
Alright.
You guys
So
are.
have them check out which one you're taking.
Deb. Deb and Joe.
So you have mine, you're seeing the code. Sure. Okay, no, this same thing you want, that's the receiver. All right, well then go on, I'll shine.
Yeah.
I heard you make some comments and you just out there to.
Yeah. I made a joke about you. You weren't there to hear it. I was really disappointed.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Washoe County District Attorney Chris Hicks, and standing up here with me today is Douglas County District Attorney Mark Jackson, along with the rest of our prosecution team, Washoe County Deputy District Attorneys Marilee Kate and Travis Lucia. Additionally, many of the Kuntz, Rankin, and David family members are standing here with us. In January of 2019, 4 members of our Northern Nevada community were brutally murdered by Wilber and Martinez Guzman. Connie Kuntz, age 56, and Sophia Rankin, age 74, shot in their Gardnerville homes. Days later, Sherry and Jerry David, age 80 and 81, suffered the same cruel fate in their home in South Reno. Our communities were stunned, scared, and family and friends of the victims were left devastated. Very soon thereafter, District Attorney Jackson and I held a press conference right here, announcing the filing of charges against Guzman and our intention to prosecute the Washoe County and Douglas County cases together here in this community. The decision was heavily researched and supported by existing Nevada Supreme Court case law and revised statutes. The extraordinary facts linking Guzman and his murderous spree, starting with the stealing of the David's gun and ending with its use in all 4 murders, figured prominently in our decision to join the cases. Within weeks, we extradited Guzman and sought and received a grand jury indictment, which highlighted the tremendous amount of guilt evidence that exists in this case. We also announced our intent to seek the death penalty. At the press conference that day, Mr. Jackson and I told all of you that this case is our highest priority, and thus we began what is now approaching a 3-year fight to bring these families justice. It is still our highest priority today. As prosecutors, we do all we can to support victims of crime and to respect their wishes. Unfortunately, the criminal justice system is often unkind to our victims. And for the families of those murdered, the journey is an unrelenting torrent of legal challenges before justice is ever reached. For the family members of the victims standing here, the experience is all too real. And they have been through an extraordinarily difficult process. Their loved ones were murdered, tragically stolen away from them without warning. Following the infliction of that tremendous anguish and grief, they then had to face over 2.5 years of proceedings in this case. There's been a pandemic, 3 separate trial settings, multiple hearings, and numerous motions filed, all that center around the rights of the defendant. Sadly, this is often the unfortunate, tortured path families of murder victims walk. It prolongs their ability to heal. It prolongs their ability to mourn. Even successful prosecutions face decades of appeals. As we were on the brink of getting this case to trial, the Nevada Supreme Court issued an unexpected opinion that caused the Douglas County and Washoe County crimes to be severed. In doing so, the court sidestepped its prior case law and rendered current Nevada venue statutes that were created for cases just like this one largely unusable. The decision created an even tougher path and lengthier pathway for justice for the victims and for their loved ones. After extensive and emotional discussions with the family members of the victims, they shared a collective request for closure and finality in this case. Their request: Guzman pleads guilty to all the horrific crimes he committed. He is sentenced to a lifetime of imprisonment, and he goes away, rarely to be heard of or seen of again in any court. Their voices deserve to be heard, and with deepest respect for what they have endured, a decision was made to withdraw the state's intent to seek the death penalty upon the defendant's pleas to all charges. The plea entered today is the first domino to fall, a noble resolution that will secure justice for the victims and finality for the victims' family members. So in simple terms, what does this resolution mean? There will be no trial or any of the risks that come with it naturally. Guzman has pled guilty to the crimes in Washoe County and will plead guilty to the crime in Douglas County and will plead guilty to the crimes in Carson City. Thus, he is giving a complete admission to all the heinous crimes committed in northern Nevada in 2019. Additionally, Guzman is stipulating to life in prison. He will never be free. He will be condemned to a life of captivity, surrounded by walls, rules, guards, and other dangerous criminals. He is stipulating to 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole for the murders he committed. In addition to that, for all the crimes he committed, he is stipulated to a consecutive aggregate sentence of 214 years in prison. As a result of his pleas, there will not be decades of appeals that we often see in death penalty litigation. And most importantly, this resolution brings finality and peace of mind to the family members of the victims, as was requested. The pleas to these charges are significant, and they signify what we hope is the beginning to an end of a long and painful journey for these family members. They have our respect, and I hope we reverse. As I said, they deserve to be heard. I'm now going to turn the podium over to Larry David, who would like to make a statement on behalf of the David family. Thereafter, District Attorney Mark Jackson is then going to outline the next steps in his community.
Our family would like it to be made known today. Our family consists of myself, my 2 sisters, and a brother. It consists of a combined 11 children that we have, a combined 21 grandchildren. So today, on behalf of all of our family members, we want it to be in light of this recent decision of the Nevada Supreme Court that we fully, as a family, support this weighty decision that District Attorney Chris Hicks, Special Appointed Prosecutor Mark Jackson, and Deputy Assistant Attorney Travis Lucia. We would also like to acknowledge and thank their entire team who has worked tirelessly on this case and for our family and other families. Together, they have shown us, each and every one of them, the utmost respect, integrity, dedication, and most importantly, compassion. And we will forever be grateful to each and every one of them. Our focus as a family is not just about this day. We also reflect and express our appreciation to Sheriff Darren Balaam, Detective Stephanie Brady, and the entire Washoe County Sheriff's Office, the Reno and Sparks Police Departments, and all the surrounding law enforcements that were so involved that contributed to the apprehension of this individual. From the point in which this horrific event took place for all of us, the murders of Connie Kuntz, Sophia Rankin, our dad, our stepmom, Jerry and Sherry David, our hearts are broken, and the pain that endures will never be ending. And Guzman is in prison. While no verdict will ever bring healing from the way in which these loved ones were so brutally taken from us, as a family, we do trust God that He has carried us and that He will continue to go before each and every one of us. Thank you.
In my capacity as the district attorney in Douglas County, I obtained a warrant last week for Wilber Ernesto Martinez Guzman's arrest, and I filed a complaint contemporaneous to obtaining that warrant, charging Guzman with 2 counts of first-degree murders for the murders of Connie Kuntz and Sophia Rankin, and also charging him with 2 counts of burglary while in possession of a deadly weapon for the burglary of their homes. I obtained the separate arrest warrant following the recent opinion of the Nevada Supreme Court, where a majority of our Supreme Court justices effectively require trials in Washoe County and in Douglas County. And like Washoe County District Attorney Chris Hicks, I want to take a moment to just briefly comment on that recent Nevada Supreme Court order, which in large part is why we are here today. But my focus of the comments are going to be related to the dissenting opinion, where Supreme Court Justices Pickering and Perry analyzed all of the evidence before them, and it was their opinion, albeit the minority, that Guzman's criminal acts satisfied the venue requirements to prosecute the Douglas offenses in Washoe County. But for purposes of this press conference and for today and for the families that are present here, what is most important to note is Justice Pickering's and Justice Paragary's empathy and their understanding, because they noted, quote, the extreme level of anguish, end quote, that the victims' families would the prospect of duplicative proceedings. Never have truer words ever been said. If the Washoe County case were to proceed to trial early next year, as a member of the prosecution team still here in Washoe County, I have the utmost confidence that a jury here in Washoe County, any jury, would find the defendant guilty of all of the charges that he is currently facing. And following his convictions in Washoe County, he would then begin the process all over again in Douglas County. However, Douglas County does not have a full-time grand jury like Washoe County. That means that the case would begin in a justice court in Douglas County, a court of limited jurisdiction. And there would be numerous hearings, including a preliminary hearing related solely to the 4 Douglas County charges. And all of that would have to occur before the defendant was ever bound over to the court in the 9th Judicial District of Douglas County to face the charges there, through a whole series of pretrial litigation, ultimately have a trial. While the prosecution team would remain the same, the defendant would get another defense team down in Douglas County who would have to start that long and arduous process all over again. Now put yourselves in the shoes of the families of the victims, and I'm speaking specifically now to the victims in Douglas County, the family members of Connie Kuntz and Sorenkin. Consider, if you can, even for a moment of time, the extreme mental they've already gone through, and what has been lost in this effect is, and the toll it has taken members who have attended all of the hearings here in Washoe County, who have heard all the arguments in court. They've attended the motion hearings. Some of the family members have even had to testify at some of the pretrial hearings for some evidentiary basis. They've observed us, the prosecution team, fight for justice in this case. But we recognize that the families of the victims will be forever scarred by the murders of their loved ones. They will never be the same. They will never fully recover. The nightmare to end. They want justice. Today marks 954 days since Guzman was indicted by the Washoe County Grand Jury. Based upon the current status of our criminal justice system and what I anticipate would happen in Douglas County, it is my estimate that it would additional 970 days in order for the matter to include a trial in Douglas County. Why would it take so long? In order to understand that question, answer the question, it's important for you all to understand what has happened over the course of the last 954 days, notwithstanding any of the delays that were related to COVID-19. Docket here in Washoe County, which every event that's occurred in the 2nd Judicial Court Department 4, it's 46 pages long. There have been 742 court filings in this case in Washoe County alone. There have been 36 court hearings in this case. There have been 44 motions filed so far. There are 1,000 pages of reports and documents related to this case. There is an estimated over 1,000 hours of audio and recordings related to this case that all have to be reviewed. The American Bar Association guidelines and the Nevada Supreme Court rule would require this new team of defense attorneys to review those 10,000 plus pages of documents and reports, to listen to or watch the 1,000 plus hours of audio and video recordings, to conduct additional legal research, to prepare and file pretrial motions, litigate those motions, perhaps even take additional writs up to the Nevada Supreme Court on matters which have already been litigated in Washoe County. All of this would take time. And Chris Hicks and I were with asking ourselves, how much more mental anguish can the family suffer? Like Chris previously stated, we honor and respect the family's collective desire for finality in this case. The next step in the process is to get the case as quickly as we possibly can into Douglas County and before a district court in Douglas County for an entry of plea consistent with the pleas entered in Washoe County. We hope to accomplish that within the next 30 days. And then following that, we will work with Carson City District Attorney Jason Woodbury, who's present here at the conference, in obtaining the guilty pleas in Carson City before a district court judge in that jurisdiction. Following the pleas in all three jurisdictions and a full and complete pre-sentence investigation conducted by the State of Nevada Division of Parole and Probation, the matter is now scheduled to come back before Judge Steimer for sentencing on Washoe County charges February 28, 2022. And we are going to be working as hard as we can to get sentencings in Douglas and Carson City to be the following week. We hope that we can accomplish that. And now I return the microphone podium back to Chris Hicks for closing comments.
While this case will now resolve in 3 separate jurisdictions, we remain a prosecution team. As Mark Jackson mentioned, District Attorney Jason Woodbury from Carson City is here as well today. And we will all join together in that prosecution team. You cannot separate the facts in this case. They intertwine the victims and their families. We remain steadfast to our commitment to work together and see this case to its new conclusion. Before we take any questions, I just want to give a few thank yous. The first and most important thank you goes to the family members and loved ones of the victims you see sitting here today. These people have been brave, they've been resilient, they've been accommodating, they've been supportive in the wake of a tragedy of us would ever even want to dream of or think about. So my deepest thanks on behalf of the prosecution team to all of them. Personally, I want to thank the prosecution team that stands behind me. We have been dedicated for 3 years to seek and find this justice. Also very important, it is essential that we thank law enforcement, particularly the Washoe County Sheriff's Office, the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. Without the immediate we would not be here today. Lastly, I want to thank our communities. This was a case and is a case that has gripped all our communities. And I thank our community for being understanding of what is going on here today. So with that, we would welcome any questions you may have.
What was the emotion like just to hear him admit that he did this and guilty plea in?
I know it was very emotional for the families, and it was important for them to be able to hear that. For the prosecution team, it is a satisfying end. But we have always had the utmost confidence in our case. We knew that guilt was going to come one way or the other. But we're happy that we were able to give this finality and closure that is so important to the loved ones of the victims. Anybody else?
Are there any concerns moving forward if he doesn't do the same thing in Douglas County or Carson City, that this would wipe out the entire deal? Or is there any concern about that happening?
We have very little concern that he won't go forward with what the negotiation is. But if for some reason he did not, we will get right back on track and go forward as we were. And the family's aware of that and supportive of that. But I fully expect, based on what I witnessed today, that he will continue to go forward with negotiations.
It seems obviously pretty unhappy with the Supreme Court decision. Is what I'm hearing you're saying is that under this decision, a case like could take 3-4 years to litigate? Is that what that case sets as a precedent?
Well, every case is unique, and this one in particular. There's never been a case in Northern Nevada like this where we had one defendant committing horrific crimes across 3 different jurisdictions in Northern Nevada. But as Mark Jackson stated, just in Washoe County, it's taken us nearly 3 years to get the case to trial. And so the unfortunate reality of that opinion is if they were to start those proceedings in Douglas County, hit the reset button, which is basically what the Supreme Court opinion causes us to do, it would be at least that time before justice would ever be served for the victims of that community. So uniquely to this case, yes, it effectively doubled the time we expected.
Is this something that you would maybe pursue going to the legislature and have them change the law so that if something like this ever happens again, the victims wouldn't have to go through the same thing?
Well, there is a law that the legislature has already created, and that is precisely the law that we originally charged these cases together underneath. The Supreme Court, in their opinion, interpreted that statute very narrowly and inconsistent with their prior case law. And so the statute still exists. There is still possibilities for, heaven forbid, a circumstance like this happens, for cases to be joined, but it is a very narrow situation.
I know you had said that this obviously was a case that you felt rose to the level of pursuing the death penalty. Was there any sort of a pushback from the families on going this route, given that that would be off the table?
No, not at all. In fact, as we said in our statement, our decision to do what has started today was in direct consultation with the family and at their requests, as Mark Jackson said, for this nightmare to begin to end.
Despite this not the original plan, you satisfied with on the corporate today?
Do you want me to keep going? Absolutely. You have to remember what happened today and what will happen in the coming weeks and months. Wilber Ernesto Martinez Guzman, who murdered 4 people and committed a slew of other crimes, has admitted full admission to all of those crimes and is stipulating to not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 life sentences in prison without the possibility of parole, to be followed by an additional 220 years in prison. So that justice for what he has done, but more importantly, it is justice for the victims and it is justice for the loved ones of those victims, because they can now move on to the next chapter of their healing and their grief over what happened to their loved ones. Any other questions? Okay, thank you all for coming today. We appreciate your cooperation.